The first thing I heard was the crack of leather against skin. I froze outside the mansion's dining room, a silver tray trembling in my hands. Then I heard my fiancé's voice. "Maybe now you'll remember your place." That was the moment everything I believed about the woman I was about to marry came crashing down. My name is Ethan Carter, and for 3 years I had built my company from a tiny office into one of the fastest growing luxury real estate firms in America. People called me a billionaire, but money had never impressed me. Trust did. Loyalty did. And that was why I had fallen in love with Victoria Hale. Victoria was beautiful, sophisticated, and from one of the oldest families in Boston. At least, that was who I thought she was. We had been engaged for 6 months. Our wedding was only 3 weeks away. That afternoon, I returned home earlier than expected after canceling a business meeting. I wanted to surprise Victoria. Instead, I discovered a side of her I had never seen. As I walked toward the dining room, I heard another sharp crack. Then a woman cried, "Please, Miss Victoria, I'm sorry." I pushed the doors open, and my heart stopped. Our housemaid, Maria, was standing against the wall with tears streaming down her face. Victoria was holding a leather riding crop in her hand. Maria's uniform was torn at the sleeve. "What is going on?" I asked. Victoria spun around. For the first time since I had known her, she looked terrified. "Ethan!" She quickly dropped the crop onto the table. "This isn't what it looks like." I stared at Maria, then at Victoria. "What exactly am I looking at?" Victoria pointed toward Maria. "She stole my diamond bracelet." Maria immediately shook her head. "No, sir, I didn't." "Liar!" Victoria screamed. Maria flinched. "I found the bracelet under the sofa. I was going to give it to Miss Victoria." Victoria stepped forward. "She stole it, and now she's pretending she found it." I looked at Maria. "Where is the bracelet?" She pointed toward the kitchen counter. "It's there, sir." I walked over. The bracelet was sitting exactly where she said it was. I picked it up. Then I looked at Victoria. If she stole it, why did she leave it in plain sight? Victoria's face changed, just for a second, but I noticed. She quickly replied, "Because she realized I was looking for it. Something felt wrong. Very wrong." I turned to Maria. "Go upstairs and wait in the staff room." Maria nodded and hurried away. Victoria grabbed my arm. "Ethan, you have to believe me." "I want to." She stared at me. But I just watched you hit someone who works for us." "She deserved it." That sentence changed everything. I slowly removed my hand from hers. "People don't deserve to be beaten because of a missing bracelet." Victoria crossed her arms. "You're making this bigger than it is." "No," I said quietly. "You made it bigger." That night I couldn't sleep. Victoria acted as if nothing had happened. She even climbed into bed and kissed my cheek, but I couldn't stop thinking about Maria. The next morning, I secretly reviewed the mansion's security footage, and what I saw shocked me. At 8:17 that morning, Victoria entered the living room carrying her jewelry box. She looked around. Then she removed the diamond bracelet herself. She placed it underneath the sofa. Then she walked away. 20 minutes later, Maria entered to clean. She noticed the bracelet. She picked it up. And instead of stealing it, she placed it on the kitchen counter. Victoria had lied. She had deliberately created the entire situation. But that wasn't even the worst part. I kept watching. At 8:45, Victoria returned to the living room. She looked at the empty space under the sofa. Then she smiled. She knew exactly what she was doing. I saved the footage. But I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to understand why. That afternoon, I found Maria in the garden. She was sitting alone on a bench. "Maria," I said. She stood quickly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter." You have nothing to apologize for." She looked at me nervously. "Why didn't you tell me Victoria had treated you like this before?" Maria looked down. "I didn't want to cause problems." "What problems?" She hesitated, then finally whispered. "She told me if I complained, she'd make sure I never worked anywhere again." My jaw tightened. "How long has this been happening?" "Almost a year." "A year?" Maria nodded. "She would accuse me of breaking things. Sometimes she would take money from my wages. Sometimes she would make me work until midnight." I felt sick. But then Maria said something I never expected. "Sir, there is something else." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "What is that?" "A letter." "From whom?" She handed it to me. The letter was from Victoria's father. I opened it, and my blood ran cold. It contained details about a private financial agreement between Victoria and her family. According to the document, Victoria's family business was drowning in debt, and if our marriage happened, my company would become financially connected to their family through a merger. Suddenly, everything made sense. Victoria wasn't marrying me because she loved me. She needed my money. But there was another problem. The letter mentioned something even more disturbing. Victoria's father had instructed her to secure access to my company's private financial accounts after the wedding. I stared at the document. My engagement wasn't a love story. It was a business takeover disguised as a marriage. That evening, Victoria walked into my office wearing a smile. 3 weeks until our wedding," she said happily. I smiled back. "I'm counting the days." She kissed me, but this time I felt nothing. "Ethan," she said, "there's one thing we should discuss." "What?" "After the wedding, I think your personal finances should be consolidated." I laughed. "Why?" "Because we're going to be husband and wife." There it was, the confirmation I needed. I leaned back in my chair. "Of course." Her eyes lit up. She thought she had won, but she had no idea what was coming. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly contacted my lawyers. I froze every account Victoria had tried to access. I canceled the planned business merger, and I prepared one final surprise. On the morning of our wedding rehearsal, I invited Victoria's family to the mansion. Everyone arrived expecting champagne. Instead, they found a large screen in the living room. Victoria smiled. "What is this?" I pressed a button. The security footage appeared. Everyone watched as Victoria hid the bracelet. Silence filled the room. Victoria's face went white. "That doesn't prove anything." I played another recording. This one showed her threatening Maria. Then another, and another. Her father stood up. "Victoria." She turned toward him. "Dad, don't." But I wasn't finished. I placed the financial documents on the table. "This is the real reason you wanted to marry me." Victoria started crying. "Ethan, please. You weren't planning a marriage." I looked directly into her eyes. "You were planning an acquisition." Her father tried to defend her. "You don't understand the situation." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I pushed the papers toward him. "Your company is nearly bankrupt. You wanted access to mine." Victoria screamed, "I loved you." I shook my head. "No, you loved what I could provide." Then Maria walked into the room. Victoria stared at her. I said, "You owe Maria an apology." Victoria refused, so I made one final decision. I handed Maria a check, not as charity, as compensation for every unpaid wage, every humiliation, and every day she had been forced to endure Victoria's cruelty. Then I offered her something even better, a management position at one of my hotels. Maria began crying. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes." She smiled through her tears. "Yes." Victoria's family left the mansion that afternoon. The wedding was canceled, the merger was dead, and Victoria's family business eventually collapsed under the weight of its own debts. Months later, I visited one of my hotels. I walked into the lobby and saw Maria standing behind the front desk. She was wearing a manager's uniform. She looked confident, happy. I smiled. She smiled back. "You changed my life," she said. I shook my head. No, Maria. You changed mine. Because she taught me something I should have understood from the beginning. Money can buy beautiful houses. It can buy luxury cars. It can even buy people who pretend to love you, but it can never buy character. And sometimes the person everyone treats like they are beneath them is the person who reveals the truth everyone else was too afraid to see. I had walked into that dining room expecting to surprise my fiancé. Instead, I discovered the truth about the woman I was planning to marry. And in the end, the woman Victoria thought was powerless became the woman who walked away with dignity, security, and a completely new life. As for me, I didn't lose a fiancé. I escaped a trap, and that was the best decision I ever made.